Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We're doing another community chat. We're this time with a historical creator because I figured, there's been a few ups and downs lately, and it might be a cool idea to get someone from a different perspective. So we're joined today by the Terminator. How you doing?
Hey man, yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Very trying to keep alive between everything going south. Let's just put it that way, right? Uh, Obviously,
Yeah,
Pharaoh's just come out, and that's going to be a talking point a little bit later on. But
yeah,
it's not been great, as a lot of people could have probably noticed. Um,
yeah.
yeah, it's
Uh, it's rough. It's rough, definitely. I think a lot of expectations were already kind of realistic, I think, for many people.
yeah,
But I think it's definitely always sad to see a Total War, a new launch um, at this state. Yeah.
yeah, it's not great. But let's not go into the sad stuff yet. Let's talk about you for a bit because you're relatively new to the scene, aren't you? In terms of
Yeah.
like YouTube.
Yeah. I started my channel back in 2021 officially. I think like March of 2021 is when I started doing things consistently. And yeah, before then I'd been in advertising for like a few years, my first kind of major job, and learned a bit about kind of marketing and also YouTube itself. I did a lot of YouTube advertising, so I kind of knew a bit about the algorithm and the ins and outs. And I just bought my first COVID PC, so decided I'll play some Total War again, which was a good decision. I've always loved Total War since Shogun Total War. And it was, yeah, that's when I started the channel. So it's been kind of a journey so far. Yeah.
That's pretty good, and you've been playing for a long time, so obviously you're aware not only of pretty much the games, but also all the shit shows that have happened over the years. Because that's
Yeah, of course.
yeah,
We've seen some pretty big ups and downs, pretty bad launches throughout
yeah,
the series. Yeah.
yeah. The last 3 years have been interesting, I think, is the word, but I mean, it's still a lot of really cool games have been able to come out. Some of them have come out all right. Some of them have just been the
Yeah.
usual CA releases, which have never been great. Let's be very honest there. No game
Yeah.
I think from Creative Assembly has ever released in a perfect or near perfect state. Um,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, so since you're more of the historical side, which is your favorite historical game? Because there's quite a few.
Yeah, there's quite a few. I mean, it's such a tough question because, and I get asked this a lot, because all of the historical games have really good stuff that they do and really bad stuff that they do. I mean, people when they think about Rome 2 Total War think how badly it launched, but 10 years later, and through, Sofia's efforts as well in the last few years, it got enough of kind of effort to put it into a place that people now kind of enjoy, especially with mods.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough question. I would say vanilla. For me, the most enjoyable is Attila because of how different it is. It's really challenging. Even if the AI isn't that challenging, the circumstances that you can get into and play, whether it's the Western Roman Empire or the Sassanids, there's just so much that's so tough about the game that isn't usually in Total War. So I think it would be, for me, Attila. Yeah.
yeah, that's a pretty good game. I know there's a lot of love for it. My favorite personally is Med 2, but it's mostly because you can mod it into pretty much anything that you want to, you know?
Yeah. Medieval 2 is amazing. I mean, it's amazing for me because it's nostalgic
Yeah,
mostly, hence why I don't really talk about it that much. But you're right. I mean, there are some really nice mods. The last one that I covered was Sardom's because they released a new campaign that's quite a bit smaller in scope than what you'd normally get in a Total War, but the amount of content in it, whether it's completely redoing all the cities on the campaign map
yeah,
or just having a variety of factions that you don't normally get in Total War, it's just really well done. Yeah.
yeah. And it's something that's I think kept the series alive because obviously modding and Total War go together like ham and cheese sandwiches. You know,
Yeah.
we've seen map changes, we've seen complete overhauls, even the newer ones, obviously like Shogun 2 turning into I
Yeah.
think it's focusing on the first stage or the second age of the Middle Earth franchise, and it's
Yeah.
like goddamn man, there is so much there. I feel like one of the big strengths, it's literally one of the reasons why Total War games don't really die. I can't really speak too much about the historical games, but I can say it about like the Warhammer stuff. Like it's keeping us going, which is really really important because it shows that the community is also as dedicated to this series as any other person. You know?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't know a lot of other games out there or franchises out there that have as much modding passion or effort as Total War does. Like there's Bethesda, obviously, that's really known for that scene. But I would say it's as much in terms of Total War and its modding scene, just as good, just as passionately. There's so many people from the modders that you talk to as well. I'm sure you know. There are just so many people who really are passionate and have the time and energy to try and make the games a bit better, whether it's a camera mod like Camille, one of the guys on the DEI team. He just, as soon as Pharaoh came out, he released like 3 or 4 mods that fixes some of the camera issues, that adds more realistic unit spacing, and that, tweaks some of the balancing. And it's just amazing to see like people like that just spend the time to do that.
It's definitely really really cool. Like for the Warhammer series, we get something called like Hyenas factions, which is a team dedicated to bringing basically races and factions that have slipped away in lore. Like they're
Mhm.
still canon, but they've never had armies, they've never had miniatures, or maybe just minuscule amounts of miniatures. So seeing these people, and then they go into every little crevice of lore just to pick up what they can to make a fully playable faction, animate them, create them, and so on. For me, that's just like insane. And
Yeah.
you're seeing it like these new game tools affecting the more modern Total War games.
Oh yeah.
Changing the maps and so on.
Mhm.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And I've been very very vocal about the whole situation with modders need a little bit more leg room, a little bit more just permissions so they can go crazy. It doesn't have to
Wow.
break the EULA and stuff like that, but the idea is these are the ones giving you a little bit more lifeblood in between DLCs, which or
Yeah.
maybe for other games which are just no longer getting support, or patches like Free Kingdoms, which desperately needs a patch.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Or Attila, I mean, with its optimization issues. Yeah, I get that. I mean, there's a very interesting kind of irony to how moddable the older games were up until Medieval 2, Shogun 2. Even Shogun 2 was almost as moddable as Medieval 2. Those games, you could pretty much do anything with them, barring the max limit of factions and cultures and units and regions, right? But you could do anything with them. Like you've got Planet War, which is basically these random ass factions all on this weird crazy map. Like people could have done anything, and they did with those games. And then you've got the newer games, the more modern games from like Empire onwards that are just not like that at all. And it's now kind of, obviously kind of turning on its head with mods like Came with the tool that people can now do huge big campaign maps and change everything. I can see there's a lot of work being done on the Warhammer 3 mod scene as well on that as well. So
Yeah.
it's nice to see it come full circle again, and see that modders have finally been able to unlock it all, and go back to that era of creative modding,
Yeah.
fully.
So obviously we do have to talk that CA did actually help with his game tools, which is really really good. I'm really happy that CA decided to help out because there's a few things like obviously Immortal Empires is a beautiful map. Let me just be very honest there. As vanilla it is wonderful,
Mhm.
but there are certain things that needed to be expanded upon. So now that we have those tools, thanks to CA helping out with Chaos Robbie and the others, we finally got that. We finally got a little bit of a map expansion, which kind of fleshed out the world to the point that I don't want to play any other map uh, because
Yeah, I
it.
mean, Well, here's a question to you. Would you then rather have had Immortal Empires release with those regions?
Oh yeah, like I and the rest of the community were like, oh, this is great, but you're missing out on a few important places.
Yeah.
So it happens. It could have been like limitations during time and so on. So at the end
Yeah.
of the day, and we know that map expansions are possible officially.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people go into angry modes because they keep forgetting that that's happened in the past because it was so long ago. Some people in the community go, "That's never happened. That was always there." It's like, no, it wasn't. Believe me, no, it wasn't. I've still got like screenshots of the original areas. Like, I get it, but it can be done. But like, goddamn, seeing like Nippon there, the Lost Isles, they added in the Eastern Steppes, which was really good for the village campaign in Immortal Empires. So
Yeah.
it's great. Modding is again one of the tentpoles for Total War in general,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I
I think
honestly get worried sometimes when modders leave.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I made a video, I remember a couple weeks ago where I said, I don't think Pharaoh will ever get expanded. And a lot of people were just like, exactly what you're saying, it's never happened before. But I think it's more a case of it rarely happens, right?
Yeah,
Obviously a game can be expanded or a new game can expand on a bigger scope from a previous, like we saw with the Warhammers, but it's just something that rarely happens. And if it does, it takes a lot of effort to do. Hence why, the game tool is happening. But it's happened over what, 10 years, 8 years of work to try and unlock these games. And so it's a tough piece of work tough piece of like thing to crack, basically.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, you were saying like modders leaving and everything. It's a weird time, I think, for Total War to go through so much negative sentiment, games that launch in a sorry state again, of course, and it's not easy, I think, for a modder to keep up that passion and effort that they've always had. Yeah,
It's been like this for like the past 3 years. A lot of people want to go, oh, because people are being over dramatic, but it's like it's not. If you look at it, I mean, in the past 3 years, we've had Pharaoh, which the launch seems to be going okay in terms of like things working as intended so far. Keep in
yeah,
mind that we're recording this literally the day after it's released, so things could change within like an hour. We could be mid conversation right now and everything's on fire behind us. Warhammer 3, abysmal launch, then paired with an abysmal DLC.
yeah,
Prior to that, they took Three Kingdoms out because it wasn't selling as much, which was their fault, by the way. That they finally got the DLC system right, and they decided, well, it's no effort, let's just take it out and shoot it.
yeah,
Total War Elysium, that was announced. It kind of did the Hyenas situation. I forgot about Hyenas, that's another one. But Total
yeah,
War Elysium was pretty much the same thing. Oh, test it out, play it, blah, blah, blah. And then died. And then was Troy with the whole Epic Games situation. So that that's six
yeah,
titles in 3 years that have had problems in some way, shape, or form, which is a little worrying. Obviously, keep in mind that like the two titles like Hyenas and Elysium, that falls because CA is a little bit more open than other companies. They want to get people's reactions early, whereas a lot of other companies will not announce them until they're
yeah.
ready. But it is a bit disappointing because it shows it there and it kind of shows like I don't know what's going inside, but something is happening inside to make things go bad.
Yeah, it is. I saw a really interesting Reddit the other day, subreddit somewhere about Baldur's Gate 3 and how, Larian Studios is a great example of a company that is still run by, or for at least some of it, run by developers, right? Developers who have experience making a game, or at least a few of them are invested or take part in making the decisions in that studio. Like it's interesting to contrast that with kind of CA's decisions in the last few years, because you really get a sense for these don't really look like decisions developers would have made. It sounds like someone who really cares about the kind of financial performance of a product making the decisions, rather than someone who cares for the player base or the product. Um, So yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. I've always been a quite a positive person when it comes to Total War. Up until like maybe 6 months ago, I pretty much every video I made about the future of the franchise was all about, how a great game could look like if CA reinvented this, or if the next historical was this and it was done in this way, how much positivity it would bring to the franchise and its future. And that hasn't happened yet, of course. So it's difficult to try and hold on hope, and stay optimistic
Yeah.
despite everything that's happened. Yeah.
It's ups and downs. I mean, I've been on a negative train lately. A lot of the community will see it as, oh, you're doing it to farm clicks, and sometimes it's like, no, I'm angry because I love this franchise. That's why I have, my background art is Warhammer. I've got Warhammer tattoos. I'm a Warhammer fan, and it's like, God damn, man, if I'm angry, there's a reason, because I
Yeah,
want this to be
absolutely.
good, and things are just not going well. But it's a very good example, obviously, what you just said, that there's someone who is more interested on the profit line of things and actually getting everything going. Obviously, you must be aware that around 2 years ago, or maybe three now, CA did get someone from former EA.
Yeah.
So obviously that is a massive red flag, and I said it a while back. I said did a little video about it. I was like, this is a red flag, and people were like, we'll have to wait and see. It's like, no, there's no waiting and seeing. This is a red flag. There's also the
Yeah.
fact that obviously they take orders from Sega, which I still think that Sega had a little bit of a part to play with Hyenas. It's way too
Yeah.
much of an investment to them not to say something, right? I feel like they
Yeah.
were pulling the strings a lot here.
I don't see the contrary, at least. I mean, Sega owns CA, and they released a statement basically. They released a statement reading between the lines saying, CA, you fucked up, and we're gonna kind of reevaluate things. And that doesn't scream a company that is ambivalent. It screams a company that has an investment in what's going on.
Yeah. It's just one of these things where a lot of companies owned by Sega are doing something wrong now, and it's like, it's when it's just one, then it's the studio. When
Yeah,
it's
it's an outlier.
multiple,
Yeah.
it's the head. It's definitely coming from above, because Company of Heroes 3 was as poorly received as Warhammer 3,
Yeah.
And it sucks because I know a lot of people love the Company of Hero franchise.
Yeah,
I
I
haven't
love
played
it.
it too much, but like, it's one of these things where clearly something's wrong with Sega, which is affecting everyone else. It's
Yeah.
um, it's very much the, not to sound very bad, but it's kind of like the whole disease situation. When it starts to fester in one location, it starts to spread into others,
Yeah,
and
absolutely. People in power are people who have influence, So
mhm.
when you've got people like that and they make decisions that affect other people, and they have to then make decisions in a different way, and it just starts spreading. Yeah, and you've got a different culture suddenly that doesn't quite have the resources and passion it needs to deliver those kinds of products player base wants. So yeah, yeah, I totally get that. I think for me, for example, I think Pharaoh is a perfect example of that. It's got everything everything it could have been, from the scope of the Bronze Age, and everything that, from Assyrians and Achaeans and other factions that could have been there, to more meaningful strategic depth and better battles. Like, there's so much that could have been done here. I feel like if Sofia, who clearly know what they're doing, had just a bit more resources and funding, and that culture of support.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to CA Sofia, I've always seen them as a really good Total War team. Uh, did you play a lot of Troy by any chance?
Yeah, yeah, I played some Troy. Yep.
Their DLCs were always really, really good. I really enjoyed their DLCs because they brought in loads of new mechanics, they brought in a lot of really cool systems. They are a very competent team, and it was obviously very obvious also when they did a lot of stuff for Rome 2, which was a shit show of a game, let's be honest. So there's clearly a lot of competency with them, which is why I like them so much.
Yeah.
Pharaoh is something I wasn't expecting, if I can be very honest.
Mm.
We just had Troy. I understand that they saw the Warhammer thing and gone, well, let's make sequels. That's what people want, right? It's like, no, Warhammer fans, and this is something very, I've echoed this a lot. Warhammer fans only want Warhammer games. They don't want anything else, right? And I'll likely be repeating that phrase a lot during this video when we start going in more in depth with the Pharaoh stuff, because obviously, you know, it felt a little bit empty, but a lot of really cool stuff was added into Pharaoh. The outpost system, I kind of like it, to be honest. I think it's all right. I think like a lot of the quality of life stuff did come in, like being able to have troops that actually, you know, give way now. I think that's a really cool thing that a lot of people have been asking for. Overall, if I look at it as a player, I would give it a good 7, maybe 6.5, depending. If I look at it as a content creator and not even that, but someone who's been here for a while, it's like 5. Nobody really asked for this. It's decent, but nobody really asked for this.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely a lot of people who asked for it. I mean, they're definitely a more kind of vocal minority. But for example, one of the most popular mods on Rome 2 right now is Age of Bronze, and they've been working on that for like 6, 7 years. So there's there's definitely room for it to happen and an audience for it. But yeah, I think I look at as I said in the video that I made, I look at Pharaoh and I see really nice things that I enjoyed in that first campaign. Like you said, I think Sofia do deliver interesting, engaging, polished mechanics. Um, I just think it's for me it's regardless with everything in mind, it's a 5 out of 10 at best because it's just doing the same thing over and over again, and the good stuff just don't do enough to make up for the bad, unfortunately. For me, I mean, I come from a place where, I play Rome 2 and Attila a lot, so I can just see so many similarities, um and it's a shame because, like I said, if I think they had enough of the resources and the funding that Sofia really needs to make a decent major game. The Bronze Age is an amazing period of human history that we know very little about, and it's almost like it could have been that kind of Warhammer 3 chaos invasion, and people kind of like obviously invading and taking each other over, but there's ample room for relationships and bigger mechanics like trade networks and everything. There's so much that could have been done here. That
So,
didn't get done.
yeah. So when I look at it as a time period, I'll be honest with you, not so interested myself. When it came to Troy, I was like, okay, cool, because there's a lot of pulp culture revolving around Troy, right? You've got the
Yeah,
Brad Pitt
yeah,
film and
absolutely.
stuff like that. It's easier for people to kind of get into. Then when you look towards ancient Egypt, it's like, well, later stuff, cool, but the Bronze Age is like, man, we know nothing about it. We don't know exactly like who the sea peoples are and stuff like that, right? Like,
Yeah,
it feels like you're putting us in a blank slate, and I don't think history fans want that too much because at the end of the day, you can't really go through history if nobody knows the history that much, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think one of the reasons why games like Medieval 2 or Rome 2 or Attila are still popular is because people can have that player kind of autonomy and just run with a kingdom and do what they want with it and feel like they're running a people.
Yeah.
And I'm playing as England. I'm gonna conquer France, man. Like that's what I want to do. It's not like I'm taking an immortal Richard III and I want to go take out Philip. Like that's not the case here. And
Yeah.
that's why a lot of people want historical to feel that way again.
That threw me off the whole having these legendary lord type characters for Pharaoh. It's like, why? You've already just killed off the moment you said that, you've already lost a lot of people that you didn't lose already, because
Yeah.
that's not historical. No family trees, no nothing. Like you're telling me that these people don't get married, they don't reproduce. I don't know what history book you're reading, but generally, people like continue their bloodline, right? It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. There's a really, really nice term that I first heard Legend use actually in one of his videos. Maybe it was in the interview with you the other day, I don't remember, but he said specifically a historical game should have generational campaigning, which is just such a concise way of saying it. Like, you want to start a family and then throughout your 100 to 200 turns get to a completely new set of circumstances with new people, new families, new traits, new skills, invading new people, and that just doesn't really happen in this kind of formula. I mean, I played 50 hours of Pharaoh, and it really, really just came down to Ramses invading Talsred again, and I'm a mess pushing north and invading this person, and it's just not engaging enough for me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I totally get you. I mean, nowadays when people say it's like, oh, should I get Pharaoh? It's like, well, if you want to play like a historical stuff, then possibly not. If you want to just play Total War, yes, but if you want to play historical stuff and you want something new, I mean, Crusader Kings 3 is a thing, right?
Yeah.
And that one's got like the family generation, so you obviously have to tailor how you play considering on the character that you're then ending up ruling and so on. Obviously, we don't need something that thorough for Total War, but
Yeah.
you know, it makes you again believe that time is passing because years are passing in game, right? There is a count at the bottom when it says like months and seasons and shit, and it's like, so Ramses is immortal, awesome, and it's they dug themselves into a hole because obviously this is built off Troy. And I firmly
Yeah.
believe that we're eventually going to get like an Immortal Empires combination with Troy, which some
Yeah.
people pointed out as like, well, the whole Troy situation happened a bit later, like 50 years later. It's like, yes, but if time doesn't exist, it's not really a true historical. You know, you can
Yeah.
have fucking Paris fighting against Ramses and shit like that. You know, it's
Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible. There's no reason to discount the possibility. I actually before we got on this call, I was looking at Benjin is a really famous modder. He released a mod on Pharaoh when it came out that unlocks or removes the fog of war from those areas that don't actually, that you can traverse into. And it's huge. I mean, the Western Anatolia and the Greek islands part, half of Crete, um, all of that is there. So I don't see any reason why CA with pretty low effort could fill in at least the Western Anatolia regions and just fill it with kind of Phrygians and Troy copy paste factions here and there.
Oh, it's
I'm
going to be
sure it can
that.
happen.
It's going to be that because it just makes sense. They want to do this whole sequel situation, which is something that I discussed a while back. I think it was with Legend or was it with Cody, where conveniently now the game is not on sale on Epic because of like chat functions, which funny enough they've been removing chat functions.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a double-edged sword there. But
Yeah.
now everyone has to buy it on Steam, where they won't have Troy, which means that they'd have to buy Troy to get access to that content in a very similar way to how the Immortal Empires works, you know? So
Yeah.
it's like, I'm just saying it's a hypothetical, but it's very possible because, yeah. And look,
Yeah.
people didn't want this, right? This is, like, just make a full game. Like, don't get me wrong, this could work out really well, but at the end of the day, all that you're getting is it just feels odd, man. Like it honestly to me it feels odd. The only theory I have about this is that they're going to likely do a Mythos DLC down the line. They said that they've got no plans for it, but remember that CA do lie often, and they can't like give out future plans. They never will. So I feel like they're going to do a Immortal Empires with Troy, and then down the line do another Mythos DLC for Pharaoh, and then everyone will get that Age of Mythology game that they've wanted for a while.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, yeah, as I said, I think it's possible. I don't like, I've said it in my videos as well. I don't personally see Pharaoh really being successful enough to justify it. I mean, peak yesterday was 5,000. It will, in my opinion, probably go up to about 8 or 9 over the weekend.
Yeah.
But the reality is every game that launches loses about 50-60% of the player base. So within a month, you can see that figure being a lot smaller. And if I was a CA exec making decisions about content and investment, I just don't see enough of an incentive to make it happen. It's possible. I would say at the very least, they'll add factions in Western Anatolia because it's already there.
Mm.
But I don't see Greece being added in. I don't know if they'll do a mythos because I think a lot of historical players don't really enjoy it anyway because of the nature of, the content.
Oh no, they'll do
But
it. They'll
I
do
don't
it.
know. I mean,
I'll tell you
yeah.
exactly why they'll do
Possible.
it. I'll tell you
Yep.
exactly why they'll do it. Because they still think that Mythos is going to bring in the Warhammer fans in. Again, going back to another quote,
Yeah.
Warhammer fans only care about Warhammer. It's just very
Yeah.
obvious. So they'll do it. Like they've got to do what, 4 DLCs? It's
Yeah.
on,
4. Yeah.
yeah, because the was it Dynasty Edition has like 4 listed. So
Yeah. Yeah.
legally
That's
they
right.
have to do 4 DLCs,
Yeah.
and I imagine that like 2 of them are done already. Like
Hmm.
I completely imagine that 2 of them are done because it's just how CA works in advance. They have to prepare in advance, and I imagine that we'll get a DLC. So we're in October now, maybe January or something, because
Hmm.
they'd like to do every 4 months for DLCs. At least that's what they've been doing
Yeah.
for Warhammer now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I think that they'll do it. I think that the last one on that list, on that roadmap thing, right? Like, well, it's not really a roadmap; it's a
The
purchase map
campaign
thing.
DLC. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's going to either be Immortal Empires with Troy, or they'll do the Immortal Empires with Troy as a free update, and Mythos will come out there. But they'll be like, if you want to play Mythos, you'll need the other Mythos DLC, because screw you. You know?
Well, I wonder now how successful Mythos was for Troy. I mean, we don't know how successful it was for Epic, but on Steam, it launched on Steam with Mythos
Yes.
when that was released. So, yeah, I wonder how that was.
I can't
Yeah.
imagine it being too successful, because again, it's just like Greek creatures and so on.
Yeah.
Had we had a Total War Age of Mythology, like literally a few cultures with all these weird and wonderful things, I think it
Yeah.
would have sold a lot better rather than it being I need to buy a game and then I need to buy a DLC pack, which was like €25 or something.
Yeah,
To
yeah,
to
100%.
because
And you're working on that kind of like loads of people out there love Age of Mythology, the game as well. Like,
that's being
so
remade now
it would
too.
have been. Yeah, 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 of course. And I'm very excited to try it out,
Yeah,
actually. But it's
it's
still on the docket. Yeah.
yeah, like because one of the creators slash developers that I speak to that is former CA Balance, he found out it was a total remake, not a like a remaster. It's a total remake. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was like, God damn, that sounds really exciting because I used to play that when I was a little kid. You know, that's
Yeah, same.
going way back. The really awful audio, God, that like the scripting was so bad.
The scripting, yeah. It
But
was good, man. Yeah,
yeah,
I remember getting it the first time as well and just playing it. Like, you're in an age where you just play it endlessly every day. That was definitely one of those games.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
completely true, completely true. I want to see what they've got plans for Pharaoh. Like, I'm not saying it's dead yet. It's always very important for people to realize that they've been able to change stuff. Like Warhammer 2 launched like dog shit, and it remained dog shit for like 3 years until the Potion of Speed update,
Hmm.
which is a big thing. But I don't know if they can actually realistically save this. It's a shame. Honestly, the Sofia team is very, very good, but it does kind of worry me. What are they going to be able to do? Like, they've got, what was it? Did they say like Lord packs or something? Or,
Yeah, they've got like three faction packs, three faction or culture packs, I don't remember now, and then the fourth is a campaign pack.
yeah.
So, yeah, we don't know anything about them just yet.
Yeah, which is very vague. I find it a little bit insulting to say, hey, buy this for like, what was it, €100, and then you're not going to know anything about it, which means that
Yeah.
if the game does not sell well, our original plans could change and we could strip it down like a motherfucker, you know? And you
Yeah, and
wouldn't
that's
know.
that's another thing. I mean, I've seen people in forums, etc., say, I'm buying Pharaoh. It might be a smaller scope, but I like the scope, and I'm hoping that in the future Greece and Mesopotamia get added. And
Mm.
it's just like that shouldn't really be a reason to buy it in, though. Like you shouldn't really buy the dynasty hoping that huge, massive regions are gonna just get suddenly magically added.
Because what people
Um,
wanted is not Pharaoh, and people didn't want Troy. What they wanted is Total War Bronze Age. They wanted
Yeah.
that whole area with all the locations to fuck around with. And
Yeah.
instead, we're getting free game because obviously Epic and they made their money from that. Then we're getting Pharaoh with Egypt and all those areas. It's like you're cutting down the scope. It's
Yeah.
obviously cutting down the scope to then mix them together, which
Yeah.
worked for Warhammer. But once again, Warhammer fans will pay because Warhammer fans are very passionate about Warhammer. A trilogy worked for Warhammer because these are the same people, and I'm one of those people who have paid like £1,000 for a single fucking miniature. Mind you, it is a Warlord Titan, and it is freaking
Okay, fair
huge.
enough.
Like I could literally beat someone to death with it, man. It is full resin, right?
Sounds heavy.
It's a 12 kilo model, 12 kilo model. But
Wow.
that's because Warhammer fans will buy it. They're passionate about Warhammer fans. I
Yeah.
don't think getting people to buy sections of the world map is a good way to go around it. I think they should have just done the whole section and go, hey, we're going to add this eventually. But like, be transparent about it, because transparency is key. Transparency
Yeah.
is very important.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't get it either. I mean, one of the reasons why I don't think Greece or Mesopotamia will be added, or Immortal Empires in a Bronze Age will be added, is because CA could have very easily, like, if it took low effort to make Pharaoh, and it's gonna be low effort to try and combine it with Troy, why not use that in your communication? Why not tell people, yes, eventually you're gonna get the Bronze Age? People would 100% buy into that.
You know, this was the plan originally, though, right? So
Yeah.
someone from CA had an interview. It was one of the interviews that I was in, and she said it was originally a Troy DLC, but then we figured out it required a bigger game. And it's like, well, first up, the moment you said that, you've killed all interest for me, because why would you say that, right? Why? That is just basically me saying, hey, I had this project, I showed it to you, and now I was going to add to it, but I've decided that I'm going to take that little bit that was going to add, make it a little bit bigger, and then sell it to you again. It's like,
Yeah. That's wild. I didn't even know that.
yeah. So
Interesting.
that's what killed it for me. This is why I didn't cover the game, right? Because at that
Okay.
point I was like, why? You know, I'm just, I am. If I cover the game, I will be pushing a frankly bad practice. If you make that public knowledge, that's the death nail for me. That's the death nail.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
I did cover early access for one video, because the campaign customization stuff I
Oh
think
yeah.
is
I saw that video. Yeah.
is incredible. You know, I love that customization options because it's something that I've been hoping for Total War for years, right? So now we finally got it, and we know that when stuff is done by CA Sofia, it's sometimes taken by the main team and so on. So it would be great. You know, I'd love to see that in future games, be it Med 2, Total War My Little Pony, or whatever, you know. It would be great if we had that, frankly, level of openness that we could just do whatever the fuck we wanted. 'Cause,
Yeah, I think flexibility is always going to be a better thing.
Yeah.
I mean, in my review video, I said it's difficult to grasp flexibility for me, at least, if the base game is more on the unbalanced side anyway, because you're then trying to grapple with, right, how is the campaign going to play if I toggle that?
Yeah.
And then you do 10 turns and you're like, no, I need to go back and try again. And just the various iterations of Doom, like, campaigns that just never left on. You know, it's a difficult thing to try and get into, but it is a good thing. Absolutely. I mean, campaign customization, if it comes hand in hand with things like even more modability, like being able to add regions through mods and new factions and all that, being able to customize all of that in a way that's new and unique, and having that in battles and like multiplayer battles as well, there's just so much that you can do,
Exactly.
like, with customization. So it's nice to see it finally, you know.
It is, it's a good push forward, and that's why it's like I was going to review the game afterwards. I was like, oh, I'm going to do a review, but my thing would be like I could only be positive about like 3 things, and I don't want an hour-long video being completely negative, because I did
Yeah.
an hour-long video being completely negative with Shadows of Change, right? one of my
Right.
best performing videos, but it sucked the life out of me, man. And I'm like,
Yeah, it's hard. It's
yeah,
hard, man, making videos like that.
yeah. So I've been in a very negative state lately. A lot of people have been pointing it out in the comments. It's like, oh, you're being negative and stuff. It's like, yes, I am, and I feel like I'm justified to be negative. But I decided that I'm not going to do videos for the sake of doing them now. I'm gonna make videos for fun because like this is my channel. I get to deserve to decide what
Yeah.
comes onto it, and Pharaoh does not make me happy enough to warrant content on it. If something really cool happens, like for example a mythology DLC, maybe, because like let's be honest, when you look at mythology for Egypt, it's not as big, but it is kind of cool, right? You've
Yeah.
got the Sphinx, you've got like the whole Anubis head things and shit like that.
Yeah, I mean,
That's awesome.
Egyptian like gods and the mythology behind them is so much more interesting, I think. I mean, personally, compared to Greek mythology. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity there as well.
Yeah. So that stuff, yeah, I'll cover. It's the same thing with Free Kingdoms, for example. I was around in the content creator program when Free Kingdoms was a thing.
Hmm.
So I didn't cover Eight Princes because why the fuck would I cover the end of the story at the beginning of the game? I didn't really cover the Yellow Turban stuff because I thought it was awful. However,
Yeah.
when they brought in the second Yellow Turban DLC, that made the Yellow Turbans a bit more fun. I covered
Hmm.
Lubu because Lubu is Lubu. Then Nanman, great.
Yeah.
And Fates Divided, which was, I think, they finally got the format right. And they decided, pew, you know,
Flush.
yeah, it sucks when that happens, and I get that feeling that this is going to happen for Pharaoh because people have
Yeah.
already gone into the game files and they've already found some commits for the next DLC. They've already found commits for the next DLC, so it's like,
Yeah.
if it's another Egyptian, why do I care? I've already got 4 Egyptian factions, unless that next faction has something really interesting.
Yeah. That's the
Right?
thing. I mean, it is Sophia, so you know their DLCs are gonna be pretty good,
Oh
probably.
yeah,
But yeah, it's gonna be, I think, difficult to grasp a DLC that again adds an Egyptian faction or a Hittite faction or doesn't really add in something new like Ressus and Memnon did, or the Amazonians. Like there's plenty of opportunity here to add in a lot of new stuff. Hopefully they do that. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, again, yeah. The Amazon DLC was great. The Memnon DLC, that's something that I really want to be used for Dogs of War if it ever happens for the Warhammer series because his mechanics are so fucking good, man. And
Hmm.
again, it shows that Sophia is very good for that type of stuff. Hell, so much is bleeding into Warhammer, thankfully. So we know that the team's at least communicating for that regard. It's just a lot of us want more, I guess, right? We've been accustomed to getting more, and now that we're getting less, it does feel like again, it's less, and
Yeah.
it sucks.
It's so weird because like you think about a company that has two player bases, really. You have the Warhammer player bases, and they love the Warhammer games, and as you said, they don't quite really consider the historical games as or new historical games as games that they want to pay for. Um, and they might own some of the older ones and might still enjoy them every now and then, but they're really here for Warhammer, right? And then you've got
Yeah.
historical players that again, it's kind of the same story. There is overlap in that kind of player base who do lots of Medieval 2, Rome 2, Attila. They do, some of them play Warhammer as well, but they are really here for, and they're really eager for a new historical title that returns to those roots. So when you release something like Pharaoh, and it's using that kind of Warhammer Lord formula, it's not got enough of the historical formula of old, and you're trying to, again, like gameplay design, it's trying to reach both audiences and convince them.
They're trying to modernize, which I think isn't really because like we've all been like we've been pretty negative for the past 45 minutes, but it's something that we do have to point out. It's every company doing this. Look at
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed now, that you don't actually like go to kill them, you just like blink around like if you're teleporting, right, and stuff. And it's a lot of companies, unfortunately, dumbing down the game, mostly because of a TikTok audience, I guess. That's the way that I explain it. It's going after TikTok fans who don't think as much, because they just want a 1 minute video and that's it.
Yeah, I think it's like a mix of low effort, high reward for people who will take a piece of content and enjoy it for a very short amount of time and then move on to the next one.
Yeah, and that's what's happening with games. It's very noticeable. The gaming industry in itself is, let's be honest, fucked. Paradox just announced another run of firings. Literally, I think it was yesterday. Then Blizzard have fired a bunch of people from their Hearthstone team, which is really interesting considering that Hearthstone is still relatively popular. We've seen it obviously with the Unity engine issues. We've seen it with Epic recently kicking off like a large chunk of staff. And it's like a lot of this has gone into the fact that there have been plans that were made during COVID where profits were sky high because everyone was gaming, and now they're not. It's like, obviously these companies didn't think, hey, this is going to end eventually because people are going to be able to leave home unless like a bunch of executives were all sitting down going, yeah, no, we're all going to be at home forever now. It's like, okay, if you think so.
Yeah, I know. It's like somebody somewhere realized, wait, this is all temporary? As in shock, like people don't have lives? They actually have lives? Wait, what?
Yeah. And now people are suffering for it, which sucks. And it's one of those things. I think Pharaoh might have been a thing. I think, honestly, they might have had a like Total War Bronze Age idea. And then due to the fact that they just wanted to shit out games constantly, because CA bring out a game once every year, a Total War game. It's been a bit less now because of COVID. But and it's something that I don't like. I don't think that bringing out a game a year is a good thing because it makes it rushed.
Absolutely.
Separate teams.
Automatically, it gives you the impression there's not as much effort going into it as something that's been like you can look at Pharaoh and easily say this has been in development for maybe 2 years, whereas older games were definitely in development for at least 5 or 6. So it's just why should I invest in this?
The moment that Rhesus and Menmom came out, they probably had plans for that Egypt DLC because it was hinted. If you played Memnon and you looked, you could see like the head of Anubis
Pharaoh.
And stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's like the moment that came out, they probably looked at it and went, okay, well, not them, but some executive, some guy who obviously doesn't know the fan base, doesn't know the player base, someone who I would say at this point is delusional, and went, hey, fuck that DLC off and make it a full game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the interesting comments I saw, for example, in the Total War Discord was from one of the CA developers. I don't remember the name now, but there was a question about whether Pharaoh would have naval warfare at any point, and it's a good question. Obviously, Bronze Age naval warfare is quite scarce in terms of records and whether it actually happened or not. But their answer was interesting. It was, we would love to have done it, but if we did, we'd have to remove something else. And it's just like, okay, so you're clearly making sacrifices for gameplay elements, features, and mechanics here. Probably features that you had on a drawing board at a certain point, and we're just like, we're realistically only going to be able to do that and this and this. So I 100% believe that Sofia and the developers there are passionate, very passionate.
They clearly
and at
listen.
one point they were like, I want to do a Bronze Age game, but it's just the reality of resources, funding, and what'll sell, what an exec thinks that they can't do anything about.
So when you said that it's like costing something else, it actually made me think of another company, Blizzard. Did you ever play World of Warcraft?
A little bit, yeah, a decade ago. So I don't remember much.
I still play it. I've been playing it ever since WoW launched in like 2004. Very, very passionate. Hell, I've even got a Horde tattoo, right? Because like that's where my allegiance lies, and that's where like we got it as a guild together way back in the day. So there was a saying there which happens every so often, which is at the cost of a raid tier. And this is literally the same thing. It's like, well, we would like to have done it, but it would have cost something else. And
Yeah.
it's like, you know, don't
Yeah.
say that though, because it just ends up being a joke. If you go on WoW forums every time a WoW expansion gets announced, there's always that phrase at the cost of a raid tier, at the cost of a raid tier, being said
Hmm.
by the fan base because it's like, what are they cutting out? You know?
Yeah.
And it's like it's a bit disappointing. I will say CA Sophia's communication has been really good.
Yeah.
Even when there's been a bit of like negativity around it. Hell, I had a conversation with someone from CA very publicly on Twitter when we were discussing one of your videos actually.
All right.
The whole thing about the theory of modders being brought in, being brought in to basically carry Pharaoh over, and someone from CA
Yeah.
Sofia very publicly called me out. It's like, well, first up, we're discussing someone else's point of view. Second
Hmm.
up, not the way to discuss with someone, especially in a public point of view.
Hmm.
But I see the passion there, and we hashed it out in DMs later, and it's like, okay, cool, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I kind of liked that. Like, I
Hmm.
know some people might think, yeah, but she called you out publicly. It's like, no, that's a good thing. That's actually a good thing. That's the
Yeah.
most communication we've ever gotten from CA in that point of view. And I think that's a wonderful thing when a dev is going to talk publicly. Again, it happens with other companies. We see it with Blizzard, with Mike Ybarra doing it and so on. And it's like, God damn, this is great. This is communication. This is why you see the devs on the public Discord talking so much with the fan base. It's like,
Yeah.
I want that for Warhammer, man. I want that for Warhammer. Because that is awesome. Like, some
Yeah.
people might see it as a negative thing. I was like, nah, man. This is a step forward.
Yeah, I don't. How can you ever think of it as a negative thing? I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like one of the biggest issues in the industry as a whole is just clarity and lack of communication and the intentions behind decisions made, how development is going. One of the coolest things about Pharaoh was the dev diaries because you could see, these developers just being like, yeah, we want to do this because it's cool and
Yeah.
like this is how we've done it, and like you don't really see that very often.
You don't.
Um,
Total War used to do that with the what the teams are working on.
yeah,
And the problem is that they made too many promises with what the teams are working on. I mean, I'm
right.
still waiting for that Northern Lords DLC, you know? It
Yeah,
happens. It happens. But the way that it's being done now is basically what the teams are working on, just in a very different way. And I feel like this is the format that it should be done because the dev diary section, again, they're learning from Paradox, right? This is a good thing.
mhm,
Learn from your competitors. You have to learn from your competitors because that's how you
yeah,
survive. And it is a great thing. I honestly really like. I told the dev. She apologized, saying, "Hey, I'm sorry if I came off too strong." I was like, "No, no, don't be. This is great. This is awesome. This is what we want. We want communication because a lot of us want CA to talk to us, not only as like creators but the fan base too. We want to hear, hey, what are you working on? Even if it's just like a silly post, like, hey, we're all having ice creams because I think on Fridays they go for ice cream or something, or they've got like an ice cream bar or something, right? It's like
mhm.
that's
All right.
cool. That's learning a little bit about CA, right?
Yeah.
We need to know what we're investing in
Yeah,
because
absolutely. I mean, like when I made that video about mods, it again, like you can think of it very easily as a result of a lack of communication because
yes,
I have been talking to modders for years now, and I've never heard of a game being given access to modders for months in advance. I've always been under the impression that it's only a few weeks in advance. So you kind of just like, company isn't doing so well. Pharaoh might have a rocky launch. If you're passionate about the game and you know you might not be able to support it in the future, could you go to the effort to share the game with modders who are going to be passionate enough to keep it going? Not like, like
yeah,
a God, this is doom and gloom. Pharaoh is fucked. It doesn't happen. So you can very easily come to that kind of conclusion and think, what does that mean? Well,
yeah.
yeah, could it mean that Pharaoh is in such a bad place that developers are talking to modders and saying, if we gave you free reign, what would you do? That's not an unreasonable conclusion to come to, I think, anyway.
No, 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 it's not. And at the end of the day, theory crafting has been a big point of the Total War fan base, right? Especially for
Yeah.
content creators and so on, because it's like, hey, what if this is happening? Especially a lot of us are in the defensive because of what happened to Three Kingdoms, because what
Yep.
has been happening recently to Warhammer. We have a
exactly.
reason to feel a little bit panicky when any little bit of information comes, because, yeah,
You can't give them any sort of benefit of the doubt anymore.
not anymore, no.
I mean, it's been like that for a long time. I feel like the very vocal minority who's been talking about it will just respond to this by saying, "Yeah, I've never given them the benefit of the doubt." But you know, people find it a lot easier to have hope. I feel like anyway. For me, it's much more like comfortable to be optimistic about something
Yes.
than just go on hating on something, right? So when you see something like this come out, yeah, I think it's fair to say, um, it's there could be positive consequences or negative. You got to consider it all, and given CA's decision making and behavior, it's not unreasonable to try and at least take into consideration that negative side.
Completely agree. One thing that really gave me a red flag about Pharaoh, and I've said this multiple times, and people are like, "Oh, it's nothing." Paid skins. I don't like
Yeah,
skins. I don't like fucking skins. I don't. They should not be in a single player game. And
yeah,
I honestly think the reason why skins are a thing is because of eventually we're going to get Total War 40k, and
hmm
every Space Marine chapter is the same. The only difference is a little different coat of paint.
yeah.
I honestly think it's that, and they're going to be able to sell that for maybe like €2-3 or whatever. But hey, you guys were cool with it in Pharaoh. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I can see that happening, definitely. I don't know like too much about 40K. I've read here and there bits and bobs. I've watched a couple incredible videos. There are some beautiful videos of 40K, kind of stories and combat. And I always think, I don't know if Total War is going to be good for this,
Oh,
but
it's going to happen. It's going to
you can
happen.
very easily actually see it the more you read about it. Yeah.
It's going to happen. I know a lot of people like now that we've mentioned 40k. There's a lot of comments now on this video going, "It's never going to work." It's going to happen. I'm telling you. I have a beyond the shadow of a doubt that's going to happen, and I've said it before. Like I'm not a gambling man, but I would put money on it. I would literally put money on it. And
Yeah, I think you're kind of like feeling about 40K. I would feel about like Empire 2 or Medieval 3. It's gonna happen at some point.
no, no, no.
Like,
I'm saying this is going to happen. And now the rumors are getting so loud. CA have been
mhm.
consistently hiring people from the 40k franchise, literally
Okay,
XGW. Then,
interesting.
not only that, but Warhammer Fantasy sold well. Imagine the big title. Imagine the very big title, because 40k has always been bigger. And then
Yeah.
Valrak has been with the rumors now. Valrak
Yeah, I saw
is a
that too. Yeah.
very, very good source, because what people don't realize is Varak doesn't hear a rumor. Like, he doesn't slam his head on the wall and go, "Hey, that's a thought." It's more like someone's telling him, "Hey, this is happening." And we know more or less that 11th edition for 40k is going to happen on the 40th anniversary, which is in 2027. I'm telling you it's going to happen. I'm telling you it's
Okay,
going to
right,
happen.
right.
I
Yeah.
I have beyond a shadow of a doubt, and that's going to be there. There's £2.50 DLCs to buy a Soul Drinkers thing, which the problem is, I'm a big fan of the Soul Drinkers. I would probably buy it. That's the problem, and that's why I have the red flag.
Yeah, I mean, I think that uh like CA have a lot of good reason to believe if they continue catering to their biggest audience right now, that they'll make a lot more money.
Oh, a
And
lot more.
40K is definitely that kind of setting where if they do it, people will buy it anyway, regardless of whether it's a good game or not, because it's
It's
40K.
40k, yeah, yeah. I mean, we don't know how much CA made from Fantasy, but they made a
Mhm.
decent amount. They've made a lot of money.
Yeah,
They will triple or quadruple that money with 40k. It's very, very obvious, because I know the 40k fan base. I know
yeah,
them very well. I've also said, it's as a word of warning to CA, like, if you think the fantasy fans are angry given the situations recently, wait till you see the other guy. And like, I had, when I said that, I think it was I think with either Legend or Cody,
hmm
a lot of commenters were actually going, "Yes, wait till you see the other guy, because they're worse.
Damn.
They are
Is it
much worse."
It must also just be a case of like Warhammer Fantasy is more niche compared to 40K. The audience is bigger, right? Way bigger.
Fantasy never got support, which was why Fantasy eventually got discontinued. It's coming back
Okay.
now because Games Workshop have been in a period of going, hey, if we support titles, people will buy it. Who knew?
Hmm.
This has been a massive problem with Games Workshop for the past 40 years, by the way. Like, it's always been
That
a thing.
help. Wow.
But now we're getting the return of Warhammer the Old World, which is why we ended up getting Cathay and Kislev for Total War Warhammer 3,
Yeah.
because those were never full armies. So, hey, when 40k comes out, they're going to be able to make so much more money because it's not just. They could sell you the same faction over and over, call it a race pack because it's just a complete reskin. If you look towards the Imperial Guard, right, you've got the troopers, but then you can sell the exact same thing with just a different texture for the Vostroyans, for the Elysium drop troopers, for the Deathcore Krieg, which actually have a few different more units, but that's because it's a Forge World army, for the Steel Legion. And I'm saying this now, and I've got people who are 40k fans listening to this going, yes, I would buy that DLC 5 times. Because they want to play as the Vostroyans, they want to play as this, they want to play. Nobody wants to play as Cadians, barring the 5 people that actually do play Cadians, right? But
And I'd buy it for my friends as well, and we'd all play multiplayer together, and it goes on and on.
there's the money, which is again skin DLC. It's going to happen, but unfortunately, it is a reality of things. I don't like it. It's just it's the way on how things are going now, which is
Yeah.
obvious with Pharaoh, and I do kind of get worried that now with the launch not being so good, obviously we have to wait. We are recording this. It's Wednesday
Yeah.
today, right?
It's Thursday. Thursday? Yeah, it's Thursday. Yeah.
Thursday. Okay, so when we find out, like, this video is going to go out on Saturday, at that point it'll be the weekend.
Mhm.
So we'll see the true Pharaoh numbers because more people play on weekends than they do weekdays because everyone's got a
Yeah,
job and
exactly.
shit like that.
Yeah.
But I do worry that, especially after what happened with Hyenas.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think the worst case scenario is Sofia gets like gutted or restructured and moved into another team when, they've done some good work here,
Yeah,
obviously. So,
it
yeah.
sucks because I honestly feel like they should be helming a major title. They should be given a major title. Give them Rome free. Give them
Yeah.
a big title to literally have as much fun with as possible and just go full fucking balls to the wall because they're a good team. We can criticize Pharaoh all we want, but we also realize that they are a very good team. And it's not their fault that management has not allowed them to flourish.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of their best work, in my opinion, was Rise of the Republic for Rome 2 Total War because you get to experience a really, really early Rome in its infancy trying to fight off, Etruscans in the north and Samnites in the south and really begin Rome's conquest of the world, And it was done with interesting mechanics, interesting new units, and on a campaign map that is just it's actually very similar to Pharaoh,
Yeah.
It's condensed on this huge Italy with bits of North Africa for Carthage, and it's very much that kind of scope,
Yeah.
but it's an expansion to Rome 2, and it's got a decent price for it, and and it feels new in Rome 2, and
Yeah.
and they just did it. They did it so well. So yeah, Sophia definitely have what it takes, and I agree. I think it's just a lack of resources and funding and a lack of vision from the higher ups to give them a proper chance.
Yeah, because again, was Total War Bronze Age, we would have a proper, just do expansions. I don't understand why they have to do standalone stuff, right? Like the last
Yeah.
expansions we had was actually in Warhammer 1 because we had Call of the Beastmen had its own campaign map, Realm of the Wood Elves had its own campaign map, and I feel like those were really, really good. Obviously, the races launched like shit, but the maps were an interesting situation. They started dabbling with that with, I think, Shogun 2 because Fall of the Samurai was standalone, wasn't it? And it's like,
Yeah. Fall of the Samurai style. I think they started it with I mean the original games like Rome had the Alexander campaign or even the original medieval had the Vikings invasion. So
Yeah,
they've done it every now and then, um, and yeah, it's been a kind of expansion basically.
yeah.
It worked in that way. Yeah.
Make expansions instead of standalones, because that means that the game lasts longer. You could have a lot of players. Thing is, obviously, they see
Yeah.
that they can make a standalone and make the money from it, and I feel like the player base is now going to be, well, they are obviously a bit more apprehensive
Yeah, I
because
think it's really weird because like okay, from a business point of view, you get the decision, you get the reasons behind making Pharaoh a standalone, but when you open Rome 2 and you see campaigns plural and you can see 4 or 5 different campaigns you can try, that gives you like this excitement to be like, right, I'm not just gonna play Europe here. I could play this. I could play that. I could play this time period in Roman history, or this one. There's a lot more variety, a lot more opportunity for replayability versus just here's Troy fight out the Trojan War, and then a couple years later, here's Pharaoh. It's very similar, but you know, you buy that as well. It's fine.
yeah, it's like, and I know a lot of people, because I've seen that argument. It's like, well, you allowed this with Warhammer, because Warhammer 1, 2, and 3. It's like, there's a difference. Not only just the Warhammer fans will buy only Warhammer games, again, I'm
Hmm.
going to push that into people's skulls, but it's also the case that it's not the same amount of work. When you have a historical game, you already have
Yeah,
a world map that's been done and mapped out. When you have the
yeah,
Warhammer map, you have a map, but it's never fleshed out. So you have to actually go back and forth. There's a lot of development time with Games Workshop in regards to where the city needs to go. Where does this go? We've never mapped out Cafe before. What happens here? Then you
yeah,
have to go about all the different models because you're not playing humans, and a different flavor of humans. Humans, orcs, this, that, the other, demons.
yeah,
A lot more work had to go into that, which had to be justified. Historical
yeah.
game, you're
Exactly.
literally just getting the same human skeleton, putting a
Hmm.
different skin on it, different weapon. There you go.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, if you try to kind of do an equivalent in your head of a historical setting that could have been developed in the same way that the Warhammers have been, you could easily say, right, okay, instead of going in through the Warhammer routes, maybe in an alternate universe, CA wanted to do Empire 2 with a full-scale global map
That,
and
yes, you
with
could
all the
justify that.
regions, all the factions, all that. So we're going to start with the first game with Europe, Africa, and bits of America, and then second game is going to expand all of North America and bits of like Asia, and then the third you have all of the Earth. And
Yeah,
it's just like, right, okay, in that way, absolutely, it makes sense, and it makes sense for
a large
that
scale
to have been
project,
done in the
yes.
Warhammer games as well. It's just a huge, massive endeavor. You can't do that in a few years. Um, yeah, I mean, hence why, for example, I think an Empire 2, like today, to meet those kinds of expectations is really, really tough.
Yeah. Uh, I don't know, like, if we talk about it, because there's rumors about all these fucking games, and the problem is that there's going to be a lot of false rumors, because there's going to be people who claim they're former devs at CA, messaging
Yeah,
people, and so on, because this is the shit show time, right? But, like, there's
yeah,
been rumors for a while, it's either Med 3, Empire 2, World War 1, which, in all honesty, I don't want World War 1, because
yeah.
I
It's
feel
tough. I mean, you've got a game that came out earlier in the year, Great War: The Western Front. It's
that was a
very
really good
Total
game.
War like, and it's really cool because it's done by the guys who did Empire at War, the Star Wars game, and it's a fun, interesting, trying like challenging game design of just moving this guy here, doing this hour-long, 2-hour-long battle over these trenches. It's an interesting take on World War One.
I loved it. I'll tell you, I played it. I got like early access to it and so on. And my God, God,
Yeah.
it was so good.
It's grueling, it's tough, and it's nice, but it wouldn't work in Total War. It just doesn't fit that same formula.
At
World
all.
War One fighting over 100, 200 meters over 100 turn campaign. It's just not gonna work. And it's the same with World War Two. I don't see World War Two happening. It's a different type of combat, much smaller unit types. It's just
So I think it could
yeah,
happen. I think it could happen. I think a World War One could happen. But the problem is, right? Like CA got really defensive when people were making bikini mods for Three Kingdoms, right? And it's like, how are you going to deal when people start, like, because, like, there was chemical warfare in World War One, you know? Like,
Yeah.
you can't handle bikini mods, but you're fine with war crimes, you know? Like, it's one of these things that it's like, it's a little bit of a double standard, and they would probably get awkward with it, so they would not have it in. Same thing
Yeah.
with, like, World War Two. World War Two would be very difficult because the historical fan base, especially for the more modern history, can get pretty fucking cringe.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, like, do you want your game associated with a lot of, you know,
Nope. Nope. Nope.
exactly. And it's like, goddamn, man. But like CA have always had a double standard, so it's fine. Like they always like tell people not to swear a lot when they do sponsored streams and stuff, which yeah, fair enough. However, then I watched a few people streaming Hyenas, and the fucking characters were swearing more than I was, and it's like, what the hell, man?
That's interesting, actually. Yeah, it must be like a. I don't know. It's a difference in audience then. I don't know. That doesn't make sense either because I feel like the average Hyenas player would have been quite young if it's in that genre, you know. So
All two of them, yes.
yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Like and Hyenas is another interesting topic. I mean, how it was invested so heavily and then how it ended, and the plug that was pulled.
It's more money than sense situation, because that was like 100 million, man. Like I look at that, anytime that I see like the value of something, I go, what can I do with this cash, right? And with 100 million, man, like I could do a lot of fucking damage, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like, why would you put this much money on a very oversaturated market, right? Never actually even get to release it. At this point, I thought they should just release it, have it peer to peer, and try and salvage it.
Yeah, so late in the game.
Yeah, because it was going to come out what, next month, November. It's like, why, you know? And you've just you kill it. You've ruined lives because you're going to fire up pretty much the whole team. It's worrying, and I'd like to think, like I've said this before, it's like, what type of cocaine binge brought up the idea of Hyenas as a game? Like,
It does look like that, doesn't it? Like,
yeah.
You can really see someone being like, in a bathroom, fuck, we should do that. My son's been playing it all day. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
It's like, well, let's have because it's Payday 2 in space. That's the way that I kind of saw it, and it's like Payday 3 was just about to come out. Funny enough, Payday 3 also died at launch, but it's like, why would you do that when there's already that? And Legend made a really good point there, which was, if you're going to do something that's already been done, you have to be best at it.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And
I mean, it's you have to, like, if you're entering a market so saturated, you need to give people a reason to differentiate yourself from others. Yeah.
But they've
I don't know,
always
it's
done
weird.
this because Elysium was a card game. Why would I want to play Elysium when I have Hearthstone, where I have Gwent? Like, and people might argue, it's like, well, the Warhammer one is very recent, but again, Warhammer guys will go to Warhammer games. Hell, I play the Warhammer mobile game, so Warhammer Fantasy mobile game. So it's one of those ones that, you know, people are incentivized to spend money and so on. However, it's Warhammer Fantasy, so it's under my interest. I've had the very, very good luck of being able to speak to devs from that company, and I speak to one of the artists that is working on that title, and they are very passionate Warhammer Fantasy fans. So yes, while there's predatory monetization practices, they firmly believe what they're doing, and they actually go into like really deep lore and bring in this, that, and the other, and like, hey, let's bring this as a monster for people to fight and stuff like that. Which there's the passion, right? There's them trying to be the best at what they are, even though it's basically just another Clash of Clans or whatever. But it's there. So again, Elysium, why Hyenas? Why not make either bring back Spartan Total Warrior, for example, right, or Vikings Battle for Asgard? Make another Alien Isolation, which was a good game. Did you ever play Alien Isolation? It was
No, I played the first one for a long while, and then I don't remember. I stopped for some reason, but yeah,
it's good. It is really good because it is anxiety-inducing. It is for me, it's
absolutely
a horror game, right? And it's like, god damn, that is so good. Like, maybe they couldn't get access to the IP for Alien, right? For the second game, fair. Make a horror game. Make your own IP and make a horror game. Because holy shit, that AI was so good after they fixed all the issues. But I will always praise Alien Isolation because it's just, it's like I've played it like, and it's when you feel your heartbeat like that, it's like, oh god, this is so good. I'm a big horror fan though, so maybe it's just me. But
Yeah, no, I feel the same. I mean, I've got Alan Wake on PlayStation. I've been playing that in the kind of like evenings. It's now getting darker earlier, obviously, so I can just kind of sit and play Alan Wake and really feel that horror. And yeah, I remember playing Alien Isolation and feeling it. That kind of like gaming. You don't nail very often, and
yeah,
when it is like that, you remember it. You really remember.
exactly. And getting a good horror game is very difficult, right? Like when you look at
Yeah.
horror games, you normally think of Silent Hill, for example, which the franchise died. It's getting revived now, thankfully. There's like
Hmm.
3 games in development, I want to say.
Okay. Wow.
One of them being a remake of Silent Hill 2, but like Silent Hill 2, right?
Yeah.
It's fucking great. But it's one of those things. If you're able to do something well, capitalize on it. Like you milk that bastard as much as you can because that is obviously what your fans want. Same thing. A
Yeah.
lot of people wanted another Halo Wars because apparently I never played Halo Wars 2, which is sad because obviously I speak to Balance a lot. So I might have to give it a try. But apparently there were very passionate fans about it and they wanted another game. It's like, well, why didn't another game happen? You know, if it made
Yeah.
its money.
Yeah, I mean there are plenty of franchises like that. Like a game that I've played over and over again and its sequels is Stalker. And when Stalker 2 got announced, I don't know where it is now because of obviously the war, but when that was announced, I was just like, holy crap, like that is another franchise just like that, older franchises coming back
Yeah.
because they know, they've got passionate developers who can do it justice and a player base that will just buy it up and they can market it. And yeah, yeah, absolutely. I never played Halo Wars 2 actually, but that's on my list as well.
Old franchises coming back is a really good thing because we've seen it. You know, Crash Bandicoot came back. A few people didn't like it because they're like, "Oh, it's too difficult." It's like that's how it was at PlayStation One, man. Like the
Yeah.
game was buggy, but that's made it difficult. Apes Odyssey came back. I'm still hoping for. There was this one game that is so cheesy, but I absolutely love it, and I mention it anytime I can. Future Cop LAPD.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So bad, but it was good, you know. And it's like I'd love for that to have like a remake, man. I would honestly love that.
I had a friend who played it day in, day out. And every time we were at school, he would talk about it, but I never played it. It's one of those games I always heard about.
It was not great, but like the story was awful. But in like it reminded me a lot of like Fifth Element in terms of writing, which in itself isn't a great film, but it is so bad is good.
Yeah, it's got that cult following for sure.
Exactly. But I mean, CA just don't want to listen to their cult followings. I guess they want to go for the next big
No.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they know they can see Warhammer works, so I can totally believe it. If they decide double down, let's just make a 40K next and build a new
I don't think
engine
it's
around
next.
it.
I don't think it's next. I don't think it's next. 2027
No.
is like.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course, yeah, yeah.
So we are due other games until then. If we get a game every year, I think
Yeah.
now that we've had, let's be honest, Pharaoh is a saga. So after a saga is a main game. I think next
Yeah.
is going to have to be Medfree or Empire 2. One of the two. And like, there's been
Yeah.
reasons to believe that because didn't they get a motion capture studio where some
Yeah.
dude was like posing?
Yeah.
So
On like a cavalry kind of
yes,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that makes
Yeah,
me
I
think
think
Empire, right?
yeah, I mean either or. Can't really tell a lot about what kind of weapon he might have been using, but he was definitely on cavalry. Both settings have cavalry warfare, cavalry units, so anything could happen.
I think.
I mean, if it happens next, it's got a lot of shoes to fill. A lot of things need to change, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
I mean, they have expectations not only because it's like big shoes to fill, but it's also they have been consistently fucking up. So
Yeah.
now people are going to be worried. Now people are going to be panicky. If I had my choice, if I had say, you know, if I was the executive,
Yeah, what would you choose?
Medfree. I'm a person who likes sword and board, which is why I resonate so much with fantasy too, because it's sword and board. Um, I'm not a big fan of gunplay. I feel like it's cool, but like, come on, army of
Yeah.
knights charging in, a fucking glorious charge. You get the whole Deus Vult meme in there.
Yeah. I think if CA wanted to try and play into their current strengths, Medieval 3 works better because there are a lot more grounded, interesting narratives that they can do, whether it's the Crusades or the Hundred Years' War
Yes.
or anything, Mongol invasion. There's just so much that they can do in the medieval period. The Ottomans destroying the Romans. There's just so much you can do there. Whereas Empire is definitely a lot more difficult, I think, for them to narratively sell you, a line infantry versus line infantry, And there are lots of again kind of touchy topics that they could try and avoid, like colonialism and other bits. Yeah.
Well, the
So
thing
it's
is, you can't ignore history, though. If you're doing a historical game, you
yeah.
can't ignore history. It's a big
Yeah.
thing with Free Kingdoms. Like, Free Kingdoms is one of my favorite games. It's poorly optimized. Thankfully, the community bug fix mod fixes a
Mhm.
bunch of that type of stuff. But like, they skipped out on a lot of stuff, and they don't mention a lot of the frankly horrifying things that happened during that time period. It's like
Yeah.
you can't sugarcoat it. It happened, right?
Yeah.
It's an unfortunate reality, but like we as humans are naturally destructive and disgusting, right? It's
Yeah.
a
And we
state of the world.
treat each other like crap. Yep.
So like if that gets mentioned, like it has to be done, right? Like it needs to be a part of it. Like I think Paradox does do well with doing it, where they skirt over it, but it's there, right? And it's
Yeah.
mentioned and stuff. Because like Hearts of Iron is very, very popular. It's a game that I keep wanting to
Yep.
try out, but again, I'm more into Sword and Board, so I naturally resonate more with Crusader Kings, which I've
Yeah.
been putting a lot of hours into recently. God damn, it's so good.
It is
Um,
good. Yeah. It is. I'm exactly the same. I mean, I've got Hearts of Iron 4 installed in my library for the last year, and I just can't bring myself to press play yet. It's yeah. I mean, Medieval 3, a medieval setting, equally has plenty of
yes,
tough topics as well. So yeah, who knows?
you,
I would prefer a Medieval 3 as well.
yeah, but you said that Empire 2 was the more difficult one, right?
Yeah.
So I think that Empire 2 is next because it is simply the more difficult one, and Creative Assembly really like to go for the more difficult one.
Yeah, it's possible, definitely.
So,
I think if an Empire 2 is made, a lot of people, it will be very interesting to see how they do naval warfare again, because it's been so long. That was such a pivotal
naval
feature of
battles
those games.
is such a sore point for me, right? Because they wanted to do it originally for Warhammer,
Oh yeah.
and it was like if you go into the game files for Warhammer, the unit cards are there. And it's
Wow.
like I played Man of War. That was the game for Warhammer Naval Battles back in the
Mm.
day. I was like, that was an unbalanced piece of shit. You had Norscan longboats versus chaotic flying fortresses. I was like, I kind of am glad that they
Didn't do
do
that.
it,
Yeah.
but I'm also like, I would have loved to see how they could have balanced it. They would have probably caused a bunch of developers to have like a mental breakdown, but it would have been interesting to see it in practice.
Yeah, I mean, I have played plenty of the Warhammer games myself. I think it would have been interesting to see also, like, the Warhammer games have so much spectacle to it, right? There's always every battle will have a big bang, a big charge, lots of gruesome, beautiful units that are just fighting each other neck to neck. You can really try and imagine what that would have been like in a naval
Oh,
format. How big and booming and yeah,
it's easy to imagine. I mean, one thing is Dark Elf Black Ox, right? Have you played the Dark Elves at all?
Yeah, yeah, I have,
So
yeah.
they're moving pseudo hordes.
Yeah.
However, what that is a floating fortress pulled by a sea dragon. So you'd have to see that there. And there is a game called Man of War Corsair, which is kind of like a Bannerlord situation for Warhammer
Okay.
Fantasy. That got abandoned very early, but that was because the developer didn't know what he was doing and was working on like 4 projects at the same time. And Games Workshop eventually stepped in and said, "Hey, we're revoking the license because you're making us look bad." Like they
Right.
actively revoked the license.
Wow.
But you would see that there. You would see the Skaven ships, which had like their own screaming bells on it. You would see all this insane stuff. It's like, God, that would have been so cool for Total War. It would have been a buggy fucking mess, but it would have been so cool. I mean, we've got
Yeah.
the island battles now, which kind of, it's not the same, but at least you don't have to auto resolve anymore. That was a big thing until like mid Warhammer 2.
Yeah.
Funny enough, like straight after a mod came out, so I guess the modder and the developer, because they were like in development at the same time, but nobody knew. So
Okay. Right.
this
Interesting.
this is literally the case of a modder and a developer figured it out at the exact same time, which just
That's wild.
happens. It honestly
Mhm.
does happen, but it's
Yeah.
like, god damn, it would have just been nice to have ship armies and all this fucking fuckery. It would
Yeah.
have
I
been a
think
lot more
the kind
animation
of
work
like.
too, though.
Oh yeah, 100% animation work. I think there would be a lot of really interesting 3D work to bring it all to life,
Yeah,
and yeah, it would have been interesting. But yeah, I mean, going back to Empire 2, they really would have to do
yeah.
naval warfare,
Wait, hear me
right?
out. Hear me
You
out.
know.
Naval battle DLC.
Oh man, can you imagine? Yeah,
But think about it, right? There's a
God.
monkey paw just happened. Do you know a monkey paw just went? Shh.
Or like a pre-order bonus, like get naval battles.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's just the reality of things because they've not been able to do naval battles well. I have heard from a lot of people. I think Dogbert, which is former CA, did say that Fall of the Samurai had the best naval battles, and
Yeah,
I
it did.
would
Yeah,
be inclined to agree. Yeah.
yeah,
It's a shame. But you know, it's been a long time since Fall of the Samurai. They can improve the tech.
yeah.
They can. I mean, let's hope. You know, at some place. You know, again, it's the whole monkey paw, right? That's always been the situation with CA. God damn it! And the thing is, like, we'd have to think after whatever the next hypothetical game is, there would have to be another saga, right? Even if they
Yeah.
don't call it a saga, which I heard a lot of people going with rumors about a Total War Babylon, which is like,
Yep.
well, that takes Mesopotamia away from Pharaoh, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I mean, Babylon. That's a very interesting area as well. You've got similar circumstances again with Pharaoh. We've got like Assyria in the north, which is quite a aggressive faction. You've got Elam to the south of Babylon, which is a bit more benign and trade focused. There's so much more you can do if you go into areas like that, and I can very easily see CA just make that a separate game for sure.
it's an odd thing. I mean, I don't know. I think like they're just gonna like try and market Pharaoh the most because if you go in the game files, pretty much all of Troy is in the game files, right? All
Yeah,
of Troy. So it's like, there's the writing on the wall. And a lot of people are going, "Oh, this is great." It's like, well, is it? Again, is it?
yeah,
But I don't know. I feel like time will tell.
yeah. I will.
It's just a very bleak moment in the sphere at the moment. I feel it's very noticeable. There are creators who are burning out. There are modders who are leaving.
Modders leaving. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, it's a very weird time. I think that I'm trying to think about it kind of actively since I did the review. Kind of what does the future of Total War look like? Is this going to be a turning point again for CA to do a new engine and try and win back that positive goodwill they've lost and come out with an Empire 2 that fills a lot of shoes? Or, is there a 40K on the horizon that they really do justice and it's new and epic and interesting? Or is CA going to just continue down this line, a yearly release, low effort, high reward, saga not saga, you know? Yeah.
Well,
Is this just the way it's going to continue?
we know that they've been working with Unreal lately, and
Yeah.
my speculation has been they're going to be doing Total Wars on Unreal because that means that when they hire new staff, because CA have incredibly high turnover, that
Yeah.
means that they don't have to train them on. I think the current engine is called Warscape, right, or something.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
it is Warhammer.
so instead of training people on Warscape, it's like, hey, we're making Total Wars on Unreal. Now you can, you know the engine. You just have to be trained on how to do the RTS point of view on that, and there you go.
Yeah.
Which would be smarter, in all honesty. It would be much, much smarter.
Yeah, hell yeah, it would make a lot of sense. You're taking away a huge amount of resource that needs to go into this one thing, this sinkhole of how do we fix the mess that is this code? Oh my God, there's shit here from Empire. Like, just dump that completely and go with Unreal. They could do a lot with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, before we end it, because I need to vote today. Actually, it's my local elections.
Oh,
Uh,
definitely.
it's one of those things where it just creeps up on you. But we
Yeah.
know that a bunch of projects were cancelled. Now we don't know exactly what those projects are.
Yeah.
What do you think those projects were?
Oh, dude, I have no idea.
See, I like to blindside people with that.
When it first, I saw you blindside Legend actually. I don't know. When I first saw it, my initial response was A, it's probably either Babylon, because you're deep into development in Pharaoh anyway, but the sentiment is negative. If you're already starting Babylon, why should you, kind
Yeah.
of thing. Or it's this new kind of potential historical, if it happens next year, that's major. Um, yeah, I mean, I have a, yeah, it's just a sticky feeling that's like, okay, if you're working on Empire 2, it's been like 3, 4 years in development. If you're in such a rut and Sega's like, we don't trust you anymore, we're canning this, that this could very well be like Empire 2. Yeah.
Yeah. So we know that there was a console game in development that wasn't Hyenas. That's
Yeah.
dead. That's for sure dead. I
Hmm.
heard rumors. I heard really really interesting rumors that an RPG was in the works, and there was reason to believe it was Warhammer through the grapevine, which would have been
Hmm.
really cool. I don't know if they were going to try and do like a situation like D&D style like Baldur's Gate, or if
Right.
because like CA like to copy what other people are doing. Let's be honest. Or if it
Yeah.
was going to be kind of like more Skyrim-y, open world and
Hmm.
stuff, which I wouldn't really call
Yeah.
Skyrim a role-playing game, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that's likely dead, which is a shame because, I mean, again, my interest is Warhammer, and hell, like if it's going to be like a D&D situation, maybe it's for the best, because if there's anyone that's going to make a Warhammer Fantasy role-playing game, quick disclaimer, because I know people are going to fucking go for that in the comments. Yes, I know Owlcat are making Rogue Trader. I know, but that's 40k. I want a fantasy game. Sorry, I had to, because
No, that's right.
you'd be surprised how often that happens. But I would want Larian to do a Warhammer Fantasy game, because
Yeah, for sure.
holy shit, have you played Baldur's Gate 3?
I haven't played BG3 yet,
You
but I'm
should.
almost. Oh yeah,
You
100%. I'm
should.
almost finished playing Divinity 2, and oh my God, is that good a game? Is that a good game? I can't wait to finish this and move on to BG3 next.
I've done like 3 playthroughs of BG3 already, and I'm at the point that this weekend I'm going to start another one, and it's like
Nice.
they're so varied and so many different ways to play, and it's just so good. And it's like,
Yeah.
and it's a staple. This is the new standard for gaming? Whether because we've seen
Yeah.
developers shit on it, right? And it's like, no, like this is the standard. It's possible that a good game can be made. If you can't do that, that's your own. That's your own fault. So
Yeah, exactly.
we've got
The
that.
only response that those developers can give is negative because they know, like,
Yes, yes.
that's
But
standard.
so role playing game, and then there were rumors. There were really really faint rumors that they were going to try and do another hack and slash game like Spartan Total Warrior,
Okay, right.
which would have played in people's nostalgia.
Hmm.
We also have heard those rumors about Medieval 2 Remastered, right?
Yep.
Especially since very recently, what's the company called that does their remastered stuff? Feral Interactive.
Feral. Yeah, yeah,
Lovely people, by the way. Very, very lovely
yeah.
people.
They are super nice. Yeah.
And they did Rogue Remastered. They've recently just ported Medieval 2 into, like, telephones and stuff. So once you're taking
Yep.
a dump, you can, like, play a few
Yep.
turns. I mean, why not, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's likely being canned too, I guess.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, we know publicly Feral have said that they're not developing it at all. They have no
Yeah,
interest.
but
So,
they will never outright confirm stuff. Like this is the perfect example, right?
yeah.
Remember Silence and the Fury, right? This is a DLC for Warhammer 2.
Yeah.
The unit cards leaked, and CA outright said, "Oh no, this is from mods." And even people that I speak into CA, because this is long before we even knew about the DLC,
Mhm.
went, no, this is this is actually from mods. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, it makes sense. The unit cards look shit. And I actually told the developer that. I was like, yeah, they look awful. So yeah, it kind of makes sense. It could just be like testing for that. And hey, they do look
Yeah.
relatively bad. It's kind of funny that they wouldn't even tell me, considering I have an NDA with them. But so I went out on a video going, hey,
Mm.
this is apparently a mod. This is what CA told me. Makes me look like an idiot. Um, but it's like, yeah, they will never outright confirm if they're doing something and they're not. There are certain
Yeah.
cases like that. It's happened with Warhammer 3 leaks. I had a lot of leaks thrown my way for Warhammer 3 because that game leaks so often. And even for stuff there, like CA were telling us, no, that's fake leak, fake leak. Like Daniel the Demon
Yeah.
Prince. And I actually told the dev, this is the funny thing. I told the dev again, it's like, oh, that's good because this concept sucks. That was for Daniel the Demon Prince. Because the story leaked about how he comes into power. It's like, that breaks law, that
All
breaks
right.
law so badly. And I still, to this day, absolutely loathe Daniel the Demon Prince. Because not only is it a ripoff of Arthas from Warcraft, but it is literally just so law breaking. It's like, God damn it. I look at him and I just see nothing but contempt. Like, literally nothing but contempt.
Wow.
But,
Yeah.
yeah. Hopefully things get better. Before we call it a day, is there
Hopefully.
anything that you'd like to state to the viewers? And
No, not really. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Yeah.
yeah, this was very different because normally I've been focusing on like the Warhammer people.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
so it's like this is kind of cool to branch out, especially like there's a lot of creators in the sphere in Total War in general that I'd love to speak to. So it made sense to
Yeah,
talk
for
to
sure.
someone from the historical scene because that's pretty much all you do, I think, right?
Yeah, 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 pretty much. I mean, I make videos about other kind of games here and there. I've done a few about like Knights of Honor 2, a very interesting kind of historical grand strategy again, or Manor Lords. Obviously, that's coming at some point as well.
I'm
So
looking
yeah,
forward
but
to that title. I played the open beta thing that they did,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I love games like Banished, right? And like Frostpunk and
Oh
stuff.
yeah,
It's like
absolutely.
you can sink as many hours into that as you do with Total War game, and it looks
Yeah,
really, really good.
exactly.
So
Does
I've
look
got a
good.
lot of high hopes. But yeah,
Yeah, me too.
with all that said, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.